Metal Jesus here, and I am back with a brand new review of the Evercade EXP handheld. You may be asking yourself, wait, didn't he already review that? Well, I reviewed the original Evercade handheld back in 2020, but now I have the upgraded version and it's new in almost every way. So in this video, I'm going to review the handheld and we'll take a look at some of the new game collections that were also released. Let's take a look. We're going to start with a quick unboxing, but I do want to let you know that this was sent to me for review. However, all of the opinions are my own. You'll notice with this box that they're promoting the fact that it comes with a bunch of games already pre-installed. So there are 18 Capcom games built onto the device, and we'll check those out as the video goes on. And notice that the tagline is leveled up. They're saying that because this is an evolution of the previous model, meaning that all the previous cartridges should work. And you'll notice that it does look a little bit different to the previous model, and I'm going to compare them side by side. By the way, the cost of this is $150. Digging down deeper, you see that it includes a pack-in cartridge. You're going to get 6 Ireme arcade games. Also included is a USB-C charging cable, as well as a full color manual talking about all of those Capcom games that you get on the device. If you're not familiar with the Evercade series of consoles, basically they are a low-cost alternative for people like me who like to collect physical media and play retro games without breaking the bank. Because of that success, as you see here, there are a ton of cartridge collections to choose from. You guys know that right now, retro game collecting is incredibly expensive, and so it's really cool that Evercade has these game collections that only cost around $20, and all of the games are fully licensed. So let's go ahead and get back to the new handheld, and I'll show you all the different ways that it's been changed and updated. Starting with the most obvious thing, and that is its screen. The new handheld is on the left, and the old one is on the right. I originally thought that maybe the new screen is a little smaller, but they're exactly the same size, the same dimensions. It's just that the bezels on the new one are more noticeable for some reason. However, the big change is they switched over to a new high-resolution IPS screen. So they increased the resolution of the new screen, but more importantly, the viewing angle. And you can clearly see that in this footage. You can also see from this footage that they changed the default aspect ratio a little bit. I'm not sure which one is more accurate, but there is a pixel perfect mode under settings if you want to play with that. Another thing that they added, which is pretty cool, is Tate mode. There is a button that you can push at any time which will rotate the screen 90 degrees. So all of those arcade shooters that would typically be vertically aligned, this thing will support, and you'll be able to use more of that screen. Notice it even has buttons down there to be played like that. It's pretty cool. Another change from the early model is that they now support USB-C. That is a very welcome update because I hate trying to find old micro USB cables. You no longer have to do that. And then there is a slight upgrade to the CPU and also the battery, but I don't think you're gonna really notice it. They upgraded the processor from a 1.2 gigahertz to 1.5. The memory went up from the original, which had 256 megabytes, up to 4 gigabytes now. I'm sure that's because they have the games pre-installed on it, but it also gives them room to update the operating system in the future. Speaking of, the interface definitely has changed on this device compared to the old one. The new interface looks closer to their standalone console, the Evercade VS. On the left, you have the icon for whatever cartridge that you've inserted. Below that is where you'll find all the Capcom games that are pre-installed. And then check it out, they have hidden games, and this can be where you type in either a secret code to unlock a game, or maybe you do a button combination, things like that. And then below that is where they do their Game of the Month program. They do this on the console too, but honestly, I haven't messed with it a lot, but I do love how much fun they're having with all of this. And then finally, settings. In there, you'll find settings for changing the aspect ratio, also turning on scan lines, messing with the bezels, changing the display themes, and also setting up your Wi-Fi. Which, by the way, can be important because some games will have an update if you put it into this new device. I assume it's because this has a slightly higher display resolution, or maybe now it will support that Tate mode. Now I want to mention something that I ran into that is kind of annoying, especially if you are an early adopter like me. Now the company did warn me about this, but I didn't know how bad it would be. Basically, the very first run of cartridges are slightly too big to fit in this. Actually, they fit, they just are really tight. I had a heck of a time trying to get this cartridge out. I was pushing on it. I had to get out a knife. So be aware if you are an early adopter and you have the first 10 cartridges that they released back in 2001, they may be a little tight. And to be clear, they've since fixed the problem. Other cartridges fit just fine. The other thing that I want to mention is that you can't currently do custom button mapping per game. This is something that was a bit of an issue with the original, and what they ended up doing was patching it in later, and they've mentioned that they are going to look at doing that for this version as well. They know customers want it, so it's just not there right now. Now let's go ahead and move on to the games. And like I mentioned, it comes with 18 Capcom games installed on the device. And it's a good mix of popular and classic titles. No real surprises, but several of them take advantage of the screen rotation or the Tate mode, which is really cool. The next collection I want to check out has 2 games on it, Alwa's Awakening and Cathedral. Here are 2 really highly regarded 2D platforming games that are getting a physical release for this device. And what's neat about these games is that they're technically new games, but they're designed to look like old 8-bit games. Now let's check out Toaplan Arcade Collection Volume 1. And I can see why they released this along with the new handheld, because so many of these arcade games support that Tate mode. By the way, I need to mention that I'm capturing this footage using the HDMI out built into the handheld, and it only does 720p video out, which is why it might look a little low resolution on your screen. But check this out, you can rotate the screen on the video out if you happen to be one of those hardcore gamers that does have a TV tilted on its side. But in this collection are a bunch of really awesome games. It's mostly shooters, but there are some surprises in here. Here's that Ireme Arcade Collection, which only has 6 games in there, but there is some real quality here, including In the Hunt, which was made by the developer who did Metal Slug. And you can definitely tell because it has a similar graphic style. What's crazy is that the original PlayStation version and also the Sega Saturn versions are incredibly collectible and expensive. And so getting the game here in physical form is pretty neat. And here we have a real surprise, at least for me, and that is a Commodore 64 game collection. I believe this is the first time that they've done a computer game compilation. And I am a big fan of the Commodore 64. I grew up with it as a kid, and so I was really surprised to see this. And if I'm being honest, I think the list of games in here is just okay. You know, the challenge of a computer like this is that there are tens of thousands of games to choose from this, and the list of your favorite games is really going to depend on you. You know, maybe where you grew up, or you know, what was popular in your neighborhood, what you had heard about. And so half of these games I'd heard about, half of them I did not. And so it's kind of fun because you get to discover new stuff, but also this would not be my list if I was gonna make, you know, my favorite C64 games. The other thing to know is that these games expect you to have a working keyboard, and you can't obviously do that with a handheld. And so you end up using a virtual keyboard, which It works okay. That said, I think there is a lot of potential here. I'd love to see more Commodore game collections, and maybe Amiga, Atari ST, Atari 8-bit. And this highlights some of my favorite things about collecting for the Evercade. They do a little of everything. They'll have the popular arcade titles or popular console titles, but then they'll do really weird and obscure stuff. They'll have modern indie games, and then they'll have classic hidden gems. And they do it all at a pretty affordable price. Is it for everyone? No, probably not. I mean, you can argue that you could just get a PSP and put some ROMs on it, and it would be a somewhat similar experience. I get it. But I do like the physical collecting aspect of the Evercade. I like how they have the full color manuals. All their games are fully licensed. But when it comes to this handheld though, do I feel like it's worth the upgrade? And I think if you are a fan of the previous generation of it, then yes, there's enough new here to justify it. The screen upgrade plus Tate mode I think is pretty cool. And there's enough game collections now that if you haven't jumped in yet, I think you probably would find something to play, something that would pique your interest a little bit. But I would love to know what you guys think. Have you ordered the new Evercade handheld? Do you have one of the previous ones? Please let me know down in the comments below. And as always, I want to thank you for watching my channel. Thank you for subscribing, and take care.